There's a notebook in the top drawer of a desk that hasn't been moved in years. Second drawer down, left side, under things that used to matter. It's black leather, still stiff at the spine like it's never been asked to open all the way. If you did open it, you'd find one sentence, written slowly and carefully. Quote, "This is where everything changes," end quote. And then nothing. No second page or mistakes, no proof that anything ever followed, just the idea of a beginning. He remembers the night he bought it, sitting on the edge of his bed, turning it over in his hands like it meant something. And for a moment it did. So much promise. A symbol for everything that could be. There was a feeling, not loud or dramatic, just this quiet certainty that life could split right here. That fork in the road. There was the belief that if he really started, things would be different. He even turned to page 2. Held the pen above it, let it hover long enough to almost become real. And then... not like this. Not tonight. I want to take my time, I want to do it right. He looked around the room and thought, I'll wait. For the right energy, the right clarity, the right version of himself to show up first. You know the things we tell ourselves. Because in his mind, it was going to be a perfect day. Clarity, no distractions. That energy you get from the feeling of a new pursuit, right? Time stretching out in front of you like it finally made sense. He closed the notebook and set it in the drawer. It was going to be such a perfect day. That day that never came. The next morning, the sun came up. Didn't feel like a beginning. Felt like traffic. Felt like emails, like small things stacking into a day that didn't really feel worthy of something big. This was the ordinary, nothing to celebrate here. So we waited again. Not out of fear. This isn't a monster in the closet thing. It's just out of respect. Maybe that's the best way to put it. I don't want to rush it. I want to do this justice. This is going to change everything. Let's give it the respect it deserves. And that's the part that hides. Because hesitation dressed up as intention can pass for discipline. So the drawer stayed closed. And the idea stayed perfect. Untouched, unchallenged, unreal. In his mind, it still glistened. It was such a perfect day. That day that never came. Years didn't pass all at once. That's not how they slip by. They elude us, quietly. In between routines that felt productive enough to avoid asking harder questions. Every so often he would open that drawer, he'd look in there. Not to write, but just to check. To remind himself that it was still there, that he hadn't given up. No, not him. He could start, but not yet. And that was enough. It was enough to keep the story alive without ever having to live it. Because as long as it stayed untouched, it stayed perfect. No bad chapters, no doubt, no proof or evidence that he wasn't who he imagined himself to be, just potential, preserved, just possibility in a glass casing. Waiting for a version of life that would finally feel worthy of it. Waiting for what he knew would be such a perfect day. That day that never came. Now, you've probably put this together. It's always easier to from the outside in, but he never did. He never realized that there is no day that arrives on a platter, clean, perfect. No morning where you wake up fully aligned, fully ready, without resistance. There is only this. There is this unfinished moment, this imperfect opening, this version of you as you are. The same kind of moment he had that night with the pen hovering over page 2, the same one most people step away from. Everyone has that drawer. Everyone has that notebook. Just different targets, different goals, different dreams tucked away. Because starting, it does something dangerous. It makes it real, and once it's real, it can be wrong. Once it's real, it can be criticized, it can be messy, it can fail. But we forget once it's real, it can also become something. And that's the trade-off. You either protect an idea of perfection, or you build something that can tangibly matter, change your life, affect the world around you. You don't get both. And one day that drawer becomes a memory. That notebook becomes something else entirely. Not a beginning, but a question, and you know the question. What if? And when you look back, you don't remember the days you waited. You remember the weight of knowing you were close and didn't move. You remember the version of you who stood at the edge of a new life entirely, again and again. You remember how good that felt in the moment, closing your eyes and imagining what it could be, waiting for life to feel just right. You could feel it move through you. It was such a perfect day. That day that never came. What's up, guys? Eddie here. And before we jump into the next chapter, just a quick note. So, as many of you know, every single video that I've ever put on this channel has been created with the intent of building momentum in your life. If you want something physical to anchor that momentum, we've created the brand AGNS, or Always Grateful, Never Satisfied, for that exact reason. It's athletic apparel that embodies the very ideas and concepts I talk about every day. Because you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, we've created a code for this exclusive community, YWW20. You can use that on the website, agns.lifestyle, or right under this video on YouTube. All the stuff is there in the shop. Again, code YWW20 gets you 20% off the entire store. It's a great way to support the channel and also elevate your journey. Let it be a reminder to keep showing up. Appreciate your time. Always grateful, never satisfied. On to the next. The moral is to the physical as 3 is to 1. A quote attributed to Napoleon Bonaparte regarding his troops' morale in battle. Victory starts and ends with mindset. So, the myth or story goes, Napoleon had a coin. And he was known, prior to embarking upon particular battles, to flip this coin. He would say, if it lands on heads, my friends, it's not our day. We weren't meant to fight. We'll stay here and fight some other day. However, if it lands on tails, the gods are on our side. We're meant to charge into battle and collect our victory, for it is destined. And every time this coin landed on tails, the army would proceed into battle. They would march into the onslaught of oncoming bullets, of weapons and fire raining down on them. And they would collect their victory. And as time passed, Napoleon died, this coin was eventually found. And upon examination, something interesting was uncovered. The coin was tails on both sides. This coin had nothing to do with the gods. It was about preparing his men for victory in their minds before ever stepping onto a battlefield. It was about believing in an outcome before pursuing its realization. This is life. To believe something's possible is perhaps the greatest weapon one can have in their arsenal. When you believe something is possible, the question goes from can I to how will I? The gap is bridged, the terrain is crossed, because time is not exhausted on the likelihood of the outcome, but on its materialization. I heard someone say years ago that some of the most incredible things in history were accomplished by people too ignorant of the odds to be held back by them. Dreams are self-fulfilling prophecies. They require one be crazy enough to willingly navigate the enemy's fire, to step into hostile territory, put a stake in the ground, and live as though you were meant to be there. To operate knowing the unknown is where answers live and excuses die. It's believing that the world doesn't dictate your fate. It just adds variables to the story. It puts building blocks at your feet, places a paintbrush in your hand. You are the only one who chooses whether to stop or go, to quit or continue. Life can place obstacles before you, but only you decide whether to bow down to them, navigate around them, or march directly through them. We win behind our eyes before we go into the world and collect our medals. The moral is to the physical as 3 is to 1. So close your eyes. Win your victories. Then go out into the world and collect them. I'm gonna be selfish, because this message is exactly what I need right now. Exactly what I need to walk myself through. And so I'm gonna dive into it fully with the hope that in some context, in some capacity, you can pull this message or idea and inject it into your own life. Whatever it is you're going through, whatever it is you're navigating. Long story short, it's the shiny objects again. It's forgetting what brought me here, what I love, what matters most. It's looking around, knowing the destination, but spending time doing me things that aren't bringing me there. So how does that happen? Misalignment tends to sneak up like a lion stalking its prey. In fact, sometimes I imagine the value of a giant mosquito net that could be placed around the things that matter so that all that complexity can't make its way in. Let the externalities remain external, right? And I walk and I think and I wonder, why is simplicity so difficult to protect? Why is alignment always seeking to collapse in on itself? And personally, why is my inclination, the second I stop paying attention, to wander off the tracks and navigate in circles? And well, that's the good news. It's like when you realize you've wandered off track or you're in arenas that aren't yours, you can finally do something about it. In fact, that may be the most important part. Life is about casting and reeling in. Casting and reeling in. It's fire, aim. Fire, aim. Fire, aim. Maybe wandering places we shouldn't be shines the greatest spotlight on where we should be. It's the best way to wake up one's intuition. Because intuition tells you what you already know. But its magic is that it tells you so loudly that it drowns out the minutia. The brain needs the heart. Otherwise, we become capable doers of meaningless things. I think life-changing things generally are not complex things. Right, let's do the exercise. The same exercise I've been doing for years. The ultimate self-awareness assessment. A, where is your finish line? Close your eyes. Do you see it? Can you picture it? Okay, perfect. Now B, how are you spending your time? And is how you're spending your time taking you to that finish line? Is who you're spending your time with taking you to that finish line? Or maybe you need to shake the snow globe entirely. Maybe you need to define what your finish lines are, which may just be the spot I currently find myself. Micro example, the other day I was with my trainer doing some barbell overhead shoulder press and was focusing on the top of the movement. And he says, look, for what we are trying to do here, sculpt and define your shoulders, you're paying attention to things that don't matter, that are not creating the greatest impact. The greatest impact is going to be the lower third of the movement. So focus there, right? And it's a smaller example of a macro question. Are you focusing your time and energy on the things that are going to get you to where you need to be? J.R.R. Tolkien wrote through his character Gandalf, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. I love that quote. That quote is everything, the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end. We are what we do, what we focus on. And so, when time passes, when we look around and see less and less correlation between how time is spent and where we want to be, the e-brake needs to be pulled. Expecting something without committing to the required action to bring it to life, well, that's pretty close to delusion, if you ask me. And I've danced around that flame of delusion many times before. Right? Sometimes without thinking or ignorance, sometimes simply being wrong. But it's happened, right? Like, why am I not gaining muscle or improving my physique? I would ask myself as I ran 10 miles a day, 6 days a week in South Florida. Obviously, there's a misalignment there. Seems obvious now. So obvious that it's almost laughable. But that was just a misunderstanding, right? Actions and expectations unlinked. And to those not familiar with this arena, this one may seem a bit out there, but I decided recently to stop calling myself an entrepreneur and instead start calling myself an artist or a creator. Why? You might even think, who cares what you call yourself? Stop being so vain. But here's the reality. We follow through on who and what we believe ourselves to be. Sure, there are entrepreneurial elements in brand building, content creation, the media business. But also, my circle consists primarily of entrepreneurs. My friends all have businesses, have exited businesses, they're growing and scaling businesses. And so naturally, without even thinking about it in a lot of ways, I start to look at my work more and more procedurally, systems, workflows, scale. Great, to an extent. But the magic is in the message, it's in the craft, it's in the creation. I've had to tell myself this 900 different times, 900 different ways. It's like that metaphor about the mosquito net I mentioned not too long ago. It's like, why is everything else trying to collapse in on that truth, on that simplicity? Because every time I deviate from me, I find myself wandering through a desert of discontent. I have to learn this same damn thing every 6 months. And, part of my realization is that's okay. I think growth requires a rewiring and readjustment. Consistent acclimation. But you have to continuously pull back in what matters, right? It was not systems and workflows that got me here. It was telling stories and helping people see the value that surrounds them. That's what makes me happy. That's what I'm best at. And I feel like a kid on Christmas every time I come back to that, right? You stretch a little too far, learn, dial it in. Find yourself stronger than you were. Stretch a little too far, learn, dial it back in. Find yourself stronger than you were. It's like going to the gym, breaking the muscle down so that you can be built back up stronger. And so perhaps the value here is an opportunity for you to similarly think to yourself, what am I doing? And is it taking me where I most want to go? And if not, doesn't mean you've wasted time. It's not an indictment on the steps you've taken or the paths you've walked. It's a celebration of the awareness, of the newness, the novelty in the next chapter. It's a celebration of the fact that you, just like me, can go anywhere we want to go next. The wake of the boat does not drive the boat. This moment in and of itself is new. It's a rebirth, a creation. What will we do with it? We go too far in order to regulate and find ourselves better than we were when that dust finally settles. But what's absolutely imperative is asking the questions. It's looking at your own life like an eagle flying overhead, seeing things holistically, big picture. Emerson said famously, hitch your wagon to a star. So find the star that lights up your soul and make sure each step guides you not away from, but towards that light. Those little blasts of intuition, they matter. They mean something. They are reminding the brain that doing the wrong things will bring empty victories. Trust me, you can win a race you care nothing about, and a lot of people do. Define your terms and execute. Choose your mountaintop and ascend. We explore in order to refine. So let each step be a chiseling away of what no longer serves you, so that you can capture the pieces of life that light up your soul. It may be that our greatest gift in life is that we're always one decision away from transformation. We're always one decision away from a new path, with new experiences, new beliefs, new identity, one decision away from a totally different life. It's almost incomprehensible that all the days leading up to now, everything we knew ourselves to be can be discarded and left with one swing of an axe, gone. What is more miraculous than that? We live at the intersection of two imaginary worlds, right? The past and the future. The past is gone and essentially meaningless. Yet as the provider of our identity, it still rules over us. Our sense of who we are comes from our collection of past memories. That imaginary world of yesterday, like the elephant tied to the chair with a rope. It hasn't realized it's strong enough to break free. It doesn't know that what confines him is not the rope, but acceptance of a lie. And that's what the past, that's what identity is, a lie. We are not yesterday, we are right now. And from the trivial things to the significant things, we get wrapped up in that lie. We overlook the gift of control we have over our future. What does it mean to say, I'm not a morning person? That in your past you hadn't conditioned yourself to wake up early? Okay. What does it mean to say, oh, I let people walk all over me? That in your past you didn't stand up for yourself? What does it mean to say I'm awkward or shy or I struggle with writing or running or public speaking? So maybe you did. But what does that have to do with right now? What does that have to do with realizing the control you have over your life? Because simply realizing you can disconnect from these narratives, that they are not you, is the superpower. Realizing that calling yourself a bad student because you failed a test is like never taking off your raincoat because it rained yesterday. It's like, no, the sun is out, adapt. And once you realize right now is the beginning of the rest of your life, you can start making little changes. Identify not who you were, but who you'd love to be, and move towards it. Read The Power of Habit and Atomic Habits so that you can understand change isn't crazy or big or scary. It's moving little things in your life around so that they work for you, not against you. Start waking up and thinking about not what has happened, but what can happen. Not what can go wrong, but what can go right. You are always one decision away from a totally different life, because you're always one decision away from change. From walking away from the narratives that you have accepted. And so remember that. But remember it not just when things are fine. Remember it when you're struggling, when you feel restless or uneasy, unsure, uninspired, sad, angry, not content with the reflection in the mirror. When you feel that negativity, you're not looking at what can be, you're looking at what you have been. And there's no room at the table for that distraction. Not when you can reach out and start building something new. Not when you can put on a new pair of shoes and walk down a different path. You are always one decision away from a totally different life. And that decision should be first and foremost to choose future over past. Your next step over the last one. Choose your ideal world and start building. I'm going to share something that over the years I've come to know to be true. And that's that generally the answers that we look for tend to fall between the extremes. So for example, you have two people. One person is adamant that option A is right. It's a no-brainer. That'll take you to the promised land. Then on the other side, the other person's saying, no, it's option B, and it's not even close. Option B is the way to go. And well, generally speaking, the answer we're looking for falls somewhere right in the middle. That's where the winning formula lives. Not always, but most of the time. The other stuff, the detail, the A's, B's, and C's, the stuff that gets the flash that we spend most of our time talking about, it's unnecessary noise and nuance. To win is to trust your instinct. It's being comfortable with your authenticity as the foundation. And then once you have that, you can choose to sprinkle the other stuff on top as flavoring. But I want to talk about this idea because I've fallen into the trap, and I think others do too, of looking for answers in the wrong places. Of trying so hard to replicate success, to meet other people's guidelines. We're so busy asking what the other people want to hear that we're not asking ourselves, hey, what do I want to say? And in the process, we lose what's most valuable. We end up rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Imagine if Malcolm Gladwell only wrote about what was trending on Twitter or what was popular. It's like, no, he writes about what he's interested in. That's why he's so fun to read. His curiosity and passion always comes through. Or if J.K. Rowling spent her time researching what works, what sells books, what do I need to buy, what's been done before me, before she created Harry Potter, we probably wouldn't have it. Her brilliant imagination wouldn't have been shared with the world because, let's be real, wizards in boarding school weren't exactly on everyone's radar. There was no roadmap to that. Or I think of Jordan Peterson's lectures. Imagine if he crafted his message around YouTube or Instagram algorithms. It would lose all its power and meaning. He's authentic, he's raw, he's real, that's why we watch him. But the reality is, every day, we're told in tailor-made, strategically located advertisements that, hey, John Smith achieved success, happiness, and fame with this product or this service, and without that, you can't get what you want. Or we turn on our phones, we go on social media, and it's hearts and likes and double taps, and we're not saying what we want to say. Right? We're reverse engineering how to get that validation. For those with brands or those in the marketing space, I mean, you know, it's always about trying to understand this mysterious algorithm where your posts will be buried. What we're being asked to do overall every day is manipulate ourselves to meet the demands of the platform or of the external criteria. And I'm not saying it's morally wrong. There's no atrocity being committed. Part of life is adapting. But what I am suggesting is there's a danger that we're not aware of. Amidst all this chaos and confusion and manipulation, we tend to lose ourselves. And when we lose ourselves, it doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual. It happens little by little, one concession at a time. We don't snap our fingers and disappear. We slowly slip away, not by what we do, by what we don't do in order to fit in. Do you know how everything in our solar system orbits around the sun? Well, what if you thought of that sun as who you are, right? When you're with your friends or family, when you're writing, saying, thinking what matters to you. Without social media, without brands and marketing and societal pressure, just simply who you are. That should always be the nucleus of your world, your North Star. That should be the measuring stick to whether you're on the right track, not the externalities that ask you to change your key so that it fits their lock. What if we re-engineered the way we look at things? What if we built a world where people expand upon who they are and what they care about, where we have the courage to say no to the latest trend or item or advice because it's just not who you are? What if you were that confident? And then, if we think some of those externalities will help us, then sure, sprinkle them on top. But they rotate around you, you don't rotate around them. That's the difference. To be content, you have to be the center of your own universe, living by your guidelines. So instead of looking around and trying to decide your strengths, based on what will be accepted or promoted or what's been done before, do yourself a favor. Take a deep breath, step back, and just simplify. You know what matters, and that's enough. You don't need the world to tell you that. So while the masses fight over solution A or solution B, maybe you'll understand that both of those solutions solve the wrong problem. And while the masses argue, which car goes 0 to 60 the fastest, scream about the features, debate which brand is the most reputable, hey, you'll at least know why you're driving, which is more than most of the world can say. You'll know where your car is headed before you upgrade to that sunroof and those top-of-the-line speakers.